Friends, there are moments in our lives that become a fulcrum, a single, sharp instant that pivots our reality and reveals the truth of who we are and, more painfully, who the people we love have become. For me, that moment arrived on a rain-slicked evening in Seattle, as I drove my worn Honda into the polished, upscale parking lot of my family's favorite restaurant. For years, they had painted me as the family failure, the one who scraped by with small real estate deals while they flashed the shiny veneer of their successful lives. But that night, their performance reached its climax, and I was ready to finally pull back the curtain. My mother, Eleanor, sat at the head of the table, her siblings flanking her, their faces contorted into familiar, mocking smirks. She checked her gold watch, a quiet, theatrical gesture of her disdain. "Still late," she said, her voice loud enough for the next booth to hear. "Still useless." Her words were a familiar prelude, the opening notes of a song they had been singing for years. My sister Vivienne leaned in, her nose wrinkled. "Smells like poverty," she sneered, her contempt a tangible thing hanging in the air. But they did not know the truth. They did not know that I had spent the quiet hours of that morning in my home office, the Seattle rain tapping against the window like an impatient drum. My laptop screen glowed with a document they had never seen, the foreclosure filing for the Brooks family home in Ballard. My mother's pride. It was a 4-bedroom house they had closed on just last year with my silent backing, a fact that had remained my secret for months. The 100 Zallos in down payment, a significant portion of their mortgage, had been wired cleanly from the profits of my first major real estate flip, a silent gift she had accepted as a family favor. Now, the document stared back at me, stamped with default notices after months of skipped interest payments. As I scrolled through the lines, I saw where the money had truly gone, the equity she'd burned on Vivienne's new SUV and Sebastian's law school loans. My thumb hovered over the print button. My phone vibrated with a call from Julian Hale, my real estate attorney, the man who had handled the paperwork on that deal and a dozen others without a whisper to anyone outside our circle. "Clara," he said, his voice carrying that steady, Seattle edge, "are you sure about pushing this? They don't even know you're the lender of record." "Not pushing," I said, leaning back in my chair that overlooked the serene gray sound. "Just collecting what's mine. Give them tonight, one last shot to own up before the notice hits." He paused, then chuckled softly. "Fair play. I'll have the demand letter queued in the app. Hit send when you're ready, and it's legally binding by morning." We wrapped it quickly, the logistics of a wire transfer reversal and tax implications. Julian understood the score from the very beginning. I closed the call and stood, crossing to the closet, where old clothes hung like relics. I pulled out a faded blouse from college, the one that screamed struggling sibling, and paired it with jeans that had seen better days. The Honda keys waited on the dresser, a reliable daily driver, even if the glove box hid titles to something much faster tucked away in a garage across town. It was all a performance, this downplay, a script my mother had written for me years ago. Showy means weak, she had drilled into me. But tonight, I would use her own words, her own expectations against her. My old Honda hummed steadily against the downpour as I merged onto I-5, the city's lights smudging in the haze ahead. I had timed my arrival for 7:20 sharp, just behind their reservation, letting the evening unfold on their terms. As I settled into the stiff chair at the far end of the table, my family's eyes were already sharpening for the kill. My mother, Eleanor, leaned forward, her gold watch catching the light from the pendant lamps. 29 years old and still dragging in late like some dead-end freelancer, she said, her voice loud enough to turn heads. My sister Vivienne swirled her pen at Noir, smirking. "What? Barely scraped enough for gas this week." Their words landed like calculated darts, each one a jab at my old jeans and faded blouse. My brother, Sebastian, shifted in his seat, his tie loosened just enough to signal discomfort, but not enough to intervene. I kept my face blank, my hands folded on the table, letting them dig their own hole. I had planned this. I would let them spill every ounce of their venom before I flipped the script. The server, a wary guy with a sharp jaw, approached with a tray of waters. He set my glass down with a deliberate nod, his eyes flicking to mine in silent recognition. I knew him. Leo Hale, one of the staff I'd kept on payroll when I'd bailed out this very restaurant 2 years ago after a bad lease deal nearly sank it. His glance told me he knew the game I was playing. My mother, however, didn't notice, too busy waving at the menu. "Look at this. Real Italian," she said, mocking me. "Not the takeout slop you'd probably live on." She then launched into a detailed breakdown of my sister's and brother's successful careers, concluding with a sneer directed at me. "And you? Still chasing those little real estate flips? No wonder you're stuck with that Honda." Vivienne leaned in, her diamond studs glinting. "But you're still splitting rent with roommates in some Fremont dive." I let the silence stretch, my pulse steady, watching my mother's smirk widen. "Still freelancing," I said, my voice flat, baiting them. "Must be tough." She shot back, "Scraping by while we're out here living." The table laughed, a brittle sound that carried to the bar. The server swept in with plates of grilled salmon and risotto, and I took a slow, deliberate bite before leaning forward with a question I'd been holding like a loaded card. "So, Mom, how's the new house treating you?" Lunar set her fork down, her lips curling into a smug arc. "Oh, it's a dream. 4 bedrooms, Ballard address. Took $100,000 down payment to seal it." The jab landed sharp, drawing a chuckle from the next table. Vivienne jumped in, her wine glass tilting. "Yeah, Clara, you'd never scrape together enough for a mortgage like that. Stick to your rentals." Sebastian, sensing something off, stayed quiet, his fingers tapping the edge of his plate. "Really?" I said, my smile thin, almost dangerous. "That's a big loan to swing." My mother laughed, a brittle sound that carried across the room. "It's nothing for us. We know how to play the game, unlike some people who think flipping condos is a career." The table beside us went quiet, forks pausing as the tension bled outward. I sat there, watching them lay every card on the table before I played mine. The server's nod had been the first crack in their facade, a signal that the night was about to shift. At 9:00 p.m., a man in a crisp navy suit strode through the dining room. It was Julian Hale, my real estate attorney. He ignored the waving diners, heading straight for our table. "Boss," he said, his voice warm as he gave me a quick, firm hug. "Didn't know you'd grace us tonight." The word, boss, hit like a thunderclap. My mother's wine glass trembled. Vivienne's mouth fell open. Sebastian leaned forward, his eyes wide. Julian pulled up a chair and settled in without asking. "Your daughter loaned us 100 zalozen last year, when our Ballard project was drowning in bad debt," he said, looking at Eleanor. "She restructured the leases, cut costs, flipped the numbers, and saved our necks. Now she owns 55% of the whole deal, worth about 2.5 million. The restaurant's buzz faded. My mother's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she stammered. A woman approached our table. Madeline Thompson, a neighbor whose daughter I had given a scholarship to. "Clara, I didn't want to interrupt, but thank you again for the scholarship," she said, her voice carrying. "My daughter's at art school because of you." Another man stepped forward, a tech CEO whose startup I had bailed out. "Your investment kept my company afloat," he said, nodding to me. My family was speechless. Sebastian's voice broke the silence, barely a whisper. "You did all this?" "You never bothered to ask what I was building," I said, my expression calm but unyielding. The air at the table turned brittle as I leaned forward, my water glass untouched. "I'm pulling the plug on that, the 100 zalozen I loaned for your house," I said, my voice cold as steel. "It's 100% of your mortgage's down payment. Time to collect." Eleanor's face went ashen, her wine glass hitting the table with a clink. "That's not possible," she stammered. I pulled out my phone, opened the app Julian had prepped, and tapped a screen. The foreclosure demand letter loaded, and I swiped my signature across it. "Sent," I said, my voice flat. 30 days. Washington law. Eviction notice starts now. The table froze. I stood up, my chair scraping softly. "You thought I was nothing?" I said, my eyes locked on my mother. "Now you've got nothing to stand on." The restaurant watched, breathless, as I strode through the diners, who parted like a silent honor guard. Outside, the Seattle rain fell in sheets, soaking my family as they stumbled after me to the curb. The valet pulled up my Audi, a sleek, Midnight, black car I'd bought myself last year. I took the keys, my movements calm and final. My mother called out, "Clara, wait!" But her plea drowned in the downpour. 2 months later, the foreclosure hit. My mother moved into a budget motel. Her real estate reputation, built on borrowed cash, had crumbled. Vivienne's marketing gigs dried up as clients distanced themselves. Sebastian, the least cruel, scraped by, forced to stand on his own for the first time. I settled into my penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, preparing papers for my next project. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from Sebastian. "Clara, I'm sorry," he said. "I should have seen you, not their lies." I listened, then deleted it. Toxic ties will only break you if you let them hold. In life, you'll find that some people see you for what you can give them, not for who you are. They'll mock your dreams and doubt your worth, all while benefiting from your quiet strength. Don't wait for blind eyes to see your value. Build your own empire, on your own terms, and you'll find that true success is not what you flash, but what you have the power to take back. If this story resonated with you, I encourage you to hit that like button. And please, subscribe to my channel for more stories of personal resilience and strength. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss new videos. Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with your own family? Have you ever had to choose yourself? I invite you to share your own family stories in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about what it truly means to build a life on your own terms.